or may not be able to join today. So I've started the recording and I believe this is okay with everyone. So welcome to, I've seen institutions. So you can say hi in our chat rooms. So we have different modes of engagement. So just a few house rules. This is a webinar. So your mics will not be enabled from the start. But when you are required to say something, you will be able to do so. I need to correct my banner behind. So allow me first put off my video. So we have, as I was saying, that when the time comes to discuss and open the discussion to everyone, we'll have the floor open, and of course, when you want to say something, you raise up your hand and we'll allow you to say what you want to say when the floor is open. So for now, I think we can have, yes, I would like to welcome Mr. Abbas Hamza, Sandra from USJ, I believe, Amos from UCU, Mr. Edson Oluka from Soroti University, Gift from MIU, Henry, Ismail, usually Ismail attends our webinars and engagements. So welcome. Someone from IUCEA, is this Ben Ruhinda? Yes, we have, I think this is, so Scholastic George, I think he's from USJ, Barak from Busitema, Martin, I think Martin logged in first from Muni University, Chigundu from MOOCs, yeah. Yes, we have several other people from particular institutions. So if I haven't mentioned your name, I'm sorry. Habib from IU, I presume. So we'll have, allow me to have handover in the next 2 minutes to Patience to start the discussion. And then we'll, all right. So I think we can start. All right, so Patience is here with us, and I think we'll start our discussion in the next 1 minute. I think, Patience, you'll enable your video and share your screen so that we can start right away. So our discussion for today, we are saying that we have 3 sessions, 3 topics to discuss. The first topic today is campus wireless networks, which is a very important topic. That is why we gave it its own day. And then tomorrow we shall discuss bandwidth optimization and performance. And then we also discuss something on basic troubleshooting for RENU services. So, as we said, the webinar will run today, starting at 3, and then tomorrow, starting at 3, same time. So, Patience is ready, and I think we can hand her the floor to start right away. Welcome, Patience. Patience has been talking, but she's muted. Please unmute.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that I was muted. Yeah, but I was only greeting you and welcoming you to our webinar this afternoon. So I think Ronald introduced me very well. I don't have to redo that. And so I will go straight to our topic this afternoon. And as you can all see on my screen, and I hope everyone can see my screen because I'm sharing it, you may confirm in the chat. But today we shall look at campus wireless concepts, yeah? So I understand that not everyone is from a university, because here in Uganda, campus tends to mean university. So wherever you're from, be it a research organization or school, or I don't know, but wherever you come from, we shall refer to your network as a campus network. So don't get surprised or feel left out when we keep mentioning wired. I mean campus, I mean your network. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so this is
I see Ismail's hand up. Ismail, what would you like to say? You are allowed to say.
Good afternoon.
The mic is open.
Good afternoon or good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Ismail.
You keep referring to the chat for us to get back to you, but on my side it is disabled. So I don't know whether that is system-wide.
Okay, let us look at that and see if it's disabled.
Okay, that was all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
okay. I think as Ronald verifies that, we shall get started because we have limited time here. So today we shall discuss or cover goals of wireless. We shall have an overview of IEEE standards for wireless. We shall look at security and authentication, placement of devices, and recommendation. Yeah. So to start off, of course, we understand that for some of you or many of you, these are not new things. These are things that are within your network. These are concepts that you might already know. So maybe we want this, when we have time to interact, to be as interactive as possible, so that someone else might learn from what you're doing, because this is the NREN spirit, sharing, yeah? But also on our end, maybe you might learn from what I'm teaching or what I'm sharing, because I have a chance to see most of your network. Yeah. So this is some sort of question, like, what do we use wireless networks for? And I think you might all agree that in most of your networks, you use wireless for access links. I think that is the commonest, yeah. And this is like the commonest use case for wireless networks. But also in some other campuses, wireless is used for, if I should call it, backbone links for your networks on campus, or just call them infrastructure links. And this to mean like links, maybe inter-building links. There are some campuses that actually have wireless there, but just a few. And yeah, we know wireless can cover up to several kilometers. When we speak wireless, of course, we also include technologies like microwave. Actually, maybe for some of your campuses, you have your last mile links as microwave. So you have last mile links that are wireless. And we know that it is also possible to have high speeds, high up to even gigabits per second. So basically, this is what I'm talking about here. This is just an example. I tried to kind of bring out what most of your networks look like. So as you can see on my screen, this really is typical for every institution. At least we know there's a CPE, just a switch. CPE is just customer premises equipment. So just a switch where everyone handshakes with RENU. So RENU is the internet, you don't know what is here, but most of your networks are like this, or at least you know this is what is advised. That from here you connect the switch to your border router and then to a core switch that distributes to different parts of your campus. So you can have a wireless link between the core switch and a switch in a far-off building. You can also have wireless at the end as your access networks, meaning that's what your users, like your end users actually use this wireless network. So I put something on the side. I said build trees, do not build daisy chain networks. And I think this has come up consistently. You know what the disadvantages of that are, much as you might also be aware of some advantages, but they're very discouraged. And this is not a mistake that I put servers here. We do not really expect anyone to be running their server network on a wireless network. Okay. So here is an overview of the 802.11 standard. This is a IEEE standard for wireless. And I really put this here because I know people don't like to, you know, look at these standards and stuff. Most times we notice that people just want to see, you know, networks working, but maybe it's important to have a bit or an appreciation of you know, the technologies of what you're using. Yeah. So I will not go much into this because it's a standard and things you can read here on your own. It's, they were telling you this broadcast in this frequency band, this is the maximum bandwidth through it and all that. Okay, so often we get to interact with people and the many requests on, so which which equipment, which access points would you guys recommend? Do you think this is better than this? And sometimes we don't, have like one correct answer, because I think there isn't, but we have some guidelines that can tell you what the best equipment for your network might be. So the first one, and which is fundamental, is that you need your wireless LAN should have a controller, so that you have some sort of management, and this is fundamental for you to make choice on what equipment, or if I should say, which vendor you are going to go for your wireless network. So of course you say, you might also say it's good to keep up with the evolving, trends. Which one is the latest? Which one is the fastest? Those are also things to look at. And then maybe you might have some special needs of your network. Maybe you're looking to actually limit the user's bandwidth. You want to say, can I actually allocate each user a given bandwidth? So you're going to be looking for equipment that can be able to do that. Then also ambition and size of your network will guide your choice of vendor or equipment that you're going to use. Because a certain vendor or equipment might be able to support up to 500 users. This other one may support up to 100 users. So that also will inform your choice of equipment. And the other one, of course, which is very key, is the cost. We know that budgets are very important for you guys. So maybe the other one to look at is cost. But fundamentally, controller, management. Because in everything, I think if you're not able to manage your network, then you cannot have, I want to say you cannot have much control of it. But I mean, I've said you can't control it. So you can't do much with it, yeah? Because you do not have control. So that's why we say that that's very fundamental. Going on, so here I try to compare managed and unmanaged wireless LAN. Of course, managed and managed being based on the kind of devices that you're running in your network. When you compare, if we just look at the size of the network, that for managed, for any large network, maybe a campus network, you might need, you will really need a managed device, or your LAN should be managed. Because when you compare, maybe if we're talking things like your home network, you don't really need a managed network, because that's small. So maybe that's where the unmanaged one would find a use case. Then you also realize that the managed one, a managed wireless LAN, will give you less manual work, because you find a lot of things automated in there compared to unmanaged. There's a bit of monitoring. So for the unmanaged, of course, you have to do it yourself, yeah? But if it is managed, then there's maybe an interface in the controller where you're able to see what's happening in your network, how many devices are connected, and a few things that actually give you very useful information. Then, as you can see there, rogue IP detection. So that's possible with the managed one, but then not in the unmanaged. The price, of course, that's very key, and I know you're always looking out for that. It is higher for the managed, and I think the functions it also gives you are reason enough, for the price. Then there's channel management. Channel management, I have something on this in the slides ahead. But I think this is very important, that in managed, you don't have to worry about, interference. Are my APs broadcasting in the same channel, or are they not? Or are they in overlapping channels, adjacent channels, all that kind of stuff. In managed, you're not worried about that. But if it is unmanaged, you're going to have to manually do that so that you avoid any kind of interference in your wireless network. Sorry. So here I put just a few examples. We notice that on most of your networks, well, since all of you are RENU members, so we kind of have a feel of your networks. At least we get to see a lot of Cisco, Ubiquiti, then TP-Links, D-Links, and Links is, yeah, quite a lot. This Aerohive or Rakas or Netgear, Fortinet, not very common, but these the ones we get to see. And here I tried to classify them for you. I think for Cisco, Ubiquiti, you have controllers with those. Actually, all these that are managed, you have some kind of management or a controller in there that can help you, see what's happening in the network or even monitor. Unmanaged, yeah, as you can see over there. Going on. So yeah, I said I'll talk about channel management. So I think I want to assume that we all know that wireless or your Wi-Fi is in these two frequency bands, the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz band, which are free bands, meaning you don't really have to go to UCC, ask for a license and stuff like that. So the free bands, and this is where your Wi-Fi broadcasts. There are others, like there's a 60 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz coming up, but I don't know if any of you has an AP that is already working in these upcoming bands, but I think technology is evolving and we are getting there. So now that we know it's for two, Wi-Fi can be in the two bands, the question maybe now on your minds might be, or we get even asked this question sometimes, that, okay, so do we use the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz band? Which is which? What would you recommend? Which is better? But I think a perfect answer is both, because they both, I mean, each is suitable for a different case scenario, For example, if we are looking like the 5 gigahertz band is very well suited for small cells, for indoors. It won't do well over a long range, so that's why small cells comes in. And this is because actually it's very susceptible to interference. Yeah. So depending on your use case or where you want to put your wireless, then you will choose and say, okay, maybe this is better. 2.4 will give you a longer range, it will be better for outdoor and things like that. Yeah. So that's why you say both, because if you say just one, then it may not meet everyone's needs. Yeah. Okay, so you say this is a frequency band, 2.4, 5, these are bands, frequency bands. Now, each band has multiple channels in which each of whoever is broadcasts, yeah? So for example, in 2.4 gigahertz band, you have just 100 megahertz in total And this is divided into small channels, small 13 channels. And anyone can transmit or broadcast in any of the channels. Yeah. Then in 5 gigahertz, you have, I think it's more than 20, I think over 40 channels. But the thing is, 25 non-overlapping channels. So the problem here, and maybe what we have to deal with a lot in wireless networks, is the interference. So we are talking 13 channels, but only 3 of these are non-overlapping. That means of the 13, if you have 3, let me say 3 access points, each access points in one of the 3, that's when you're going to transmit or broadcast without this earpiece interfering with each other. Yeah. But in the 5 gigahertz, because it's bigger, you have 25 non-overlapping channels. And I'm going to show you this. Okay, I'll get there. Let me just follow the slides as the flow. So I've talked about the 3 channels, the 3 non-overlapping channels in the 2.4 band. And this is the theoretical, channel coverage design. That those 3, by the way, are channel 1, 6, and 11. So just something here, it's a bit theoretical, and I'll give you the reasons why. Some of you maybe you have very organized networks, and you may be able to actually achieve this, which would be a plus for you. Yeah. So because of the way the channels are, I think I didn't include something, but because the channels are all like this, whoever is transmitting this, something like this. So if I just do 1, if this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you'd realize that if this is 1, if someone is broadcasting in here, then they'll be interfering with 2, right? So that if you want to broadcast in this other one, you're going to have interference. But anyway, the 3 channels that do not overlap are 11, 1, and 6. So now here we are telling you that maybe if you are looking at this as, say, maybe buildings, small buildings, they're saying that, so if this first one is broadcasting in channel 11, then you configure the second one to broadcast in channel 1, and the next one to broadcast in channel 6, in this order. And then if there are adjacent ones, if there are other buildings maybe right behind here, or you have access points that are right next to these ones. So if you have 11 here, then the first one here has got to be 1, then 6, like that, so that there is no overlapping and hence no interference. But like I said, this is theoretical, and this is why. Because in practice, you see, in practice, you can only manage your campus network, but we don't know what your neighbors are doing. And most of you maybe don't even know what your neighbors are really up to, but they could also have their own Wi-Fi. So much as you're saying this AP on this edge, they've been channel 1, you're not going to first consult with your neighbor that in which channel is your access point broadcasting. So that becomes a problem, yeah, because everyone is doing their own thing. And of course, people move with Wi-Fi's. RENU has brought EDROM on the go. So if someone is moving with their own device, this is bring your own device. So if someone is moving with their own device and broadcasting Wi-Fi, you're not going to control them. So they can broadcast Wi-Fi and maybe the same channel as your wireless access point, and there will be interference there. And of course, the other limitation, of course, the main one is that your buildings and sites are not really neatly arranged, that you're going to have that neat order. Yeah. So this is, you know, all these reasons above is what actually makes automatic channel management very useful, which I've been talking about from the start, which comes with, you know, a controller or some sort of management that you actually do not have to go configuring each AP in a particular, you know, channel or something of the sort. So the controller has the ability to automatically assign each AP in a given channel after monitoring what is happening in terms of interference. Okay, but so what you need to really avoid is broadcasting in adjacent channels. So adjacent is 1 and 2, yeah? So if one AP is broadcasting in channel 1, so what should be avoided at all times is having another AP broadcasting in channel 2, because it overlaps. You see, if I just follow my cursor, actually, just look at this thing here. You see, this is channel 1, yeah? So there's an SSID here with its bordered orange, yeah? It's broadcasting in channel 1. So what I'm saying is that you shouldn't have any other broadcasting in channel 2, because I think this actually is this purple one is not exactly in channel 2, it's in like channel 4 maybe. It's usually in the middle, like how you see 1 is in the middle of this spectrum. So even this one, because if it is in channel 2, it really completely overlaps with channel 1, and that is a big problem. So instead of that, the recommendation is that you'd rather have, you know, the 2 APs broadcasting in the same channel instead of having them in adjacent channels. So yeah, this is why I've included this. So there are tools where you can get this, you know, new network to just even scan and see, okay, my wireless networks, how are they which channels are they broadcasting in? Could it be affecting my users and what? So like this screenshot here is from I think Wi-Fi Analyzer. Yeah, it's just an app that you can put on your phone. And I did it here. It's surprisingly quite many SSIDs in the same place. So to give you what is running in the 2.4 band and also in the 5 gigahertz band. Moving on, maybe the other question that that we need to ask ourselves is okay, so I have this big wide campus, maybe UCU, maybe I don't know, IU. So where do I put the access points? Yeah, but I think the straightforward answer is you put the access points where there are users, right? Like in your house, you put a bulb or you put light where people need it. Yeah. So, but then it has to be more than that, because yes, so if people down at the library say they need internet, doesn't mean that the next day you just go and put an access point. So you need some sort of survey. And because this is a wireless signals we are talking about, and they can be affected by many things. So before you just go and, you know, place an access point anywhere, you need to be sure that actually people that are using that are intended to use that access point will have good reception. So if there's a tree, you clearly know that there'll be some kind of absorption. If there are buildings, maybe some kind of reflection, diffraction, stuff like that. Yeah, so the physical layout is very important, because you want your users to get the maximum signal. Yeah, this is the goal. And yeah, maybe you may also need to look at the wireless spectrum in that particular place. Yeah. So that's what you need to do before you put your access points anywhere. And maybe the other one is how many users per AP. So of course there's the recommended, but we know that we have our limitations, and yeah, sometimes we don't do what is recommended. Yeah. But I think actually most vendors will tell you that this is capable of having up to this many users, But yeah, of course, sometimes we can overshoot. I think the general one for many vendors is this, that you have 20 moderate use, 10 to 20 power users, 50 moderate users. And well, you can push to have up to 300 users if you really have to. But of course, you wouldn't expect that the experience will be the same as if there were only 10 or 20 people connected to that. Yeah, so importantly, you need to plan, you need to monitor, you need to get feedback from your users. Yeah, so since most of you I mean, you're the IT guys at your respective universities. So it's important that people are not always, you know, saying, man, these IT guys, we can't use the Wi-Fi to set up these things, because they don't actually understand them. So it is important that we make it a point to actually always get feedback from the end users, yeah, about the network that you're giving them. Okay, so maybe I think I have talked for quite some time now. I want to know whether you guys are actually there. So we can maybe have some kind of discussion. If you have any inputs, any questions, we can share before I get into the other part of the presentation. So Ronald.
Thank you, Patience, and thank you so far for the presentation. I would I'd like to welcome a few questions or insights or concerns raised from the members. I believe Ismail's request was handled. The chat is now open. Yes, Ismail is greeting us actually. So just a few things. We said that this webinar is aimed at having an insightful discussion within the member institutions that we serve. And because most of us have wireless, at least a portion of our network is wireless. So that's why it was important to have a discussion around this. So in case you have anything, a question or so far from what has been discussed around planning, around where to place your wireless equipment, around the standards and anything like that, 5G or 5 gigahertz versus 2.4 gigahertz, a discussion around there. In case there is any question, we can have a few, then we proceed to the next part. So I've seen from IUCEA, I think this is Ben Ruhinda. He says, thank you for the very good presentation. And thank you, Ben. We see an attendee who is anonymous. I don't know how he didn't register. Hopefully you send us the presentations on our emails for reference and review. Yes, we shall surely send through a recording of the webinar and the presentations. We believe we shall send this through tomorrow after the second part of the webinar tomorrow. So we shall send through the presentation, the video, and possibly we shall ask for your feedback on how the webinar has been conducted and any feedback that you would like to share with us. So in case there is any question, yes, I see from the chat room, Ismail is asking, do we have wireless controllers that are not tied to a particular vendor or manufacturer? Do we have wireless controllers that are not tied to the particular vendor? He's asking, is there a generic generic controller that is open and maybe can adapt access points, maybe wireless infrastructure from both, say, Cambium, Ubiquiti, MikroTik, or anything? That is the first question. I don't know if patients can have the word around that.
All right. I think that was Ismail. Thank you for the question. I think in my experience, and we are here to discuss anyway, but in my experience, I haven't really seen any generic controller. What you see is that Ubiquiti is going to have its Ubiquiti controller. Cisco is going to have its, a Cisco controller. So as if in a way saying that your network should be on one vendor for you to have that kind of, easy control. No generic controller that I know. If someone else there has come across any, feel free to put up your hand or post in the chat. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that question. I want to believe it's either maybe it could be inspired by the technology that they want to give all the monetary aspects that people would want to use their own. Some controllers actually are free, some are physical boxes that you have to, physical equipment that you have to purchase as well. So it may be a business move to customize a controller to the actual equipment, the access point or anything. So, but we can have the discussion on the chat as well. So, Mubarak Kajumba from Busitema, I believe, says, hello, patients, thanks for the lecture. My question is, how do I know whether a given access point is broadcasting channel 1 or 2 or 3, such that I do not place them near each other? Patients, would you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I had something here. So this is something I did today at office. To get this information here. They're just here at RENU office. There are just so many SSIDs running here. So because I knew, I thought this would be good to share, that you can actually just use Wi-Fi analyzer. It's an app you can download from your Play Store or App Store. And see where each AP is actually broadcasting. So this, you can use this analyzer to see that. But for these vendors that have that are managed, it will actually do it automatically. But if I remember well, I think in Unify you can actually even just choose which channel you want it to be in. So you either make it automatic or you can, put it statically, like put that this should be in this channel, this should be in the other. But also automatically for managed ones, it will be able to see which the best channel to broadcast in. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. If you have access to your controller, Engineer Mubarak, I think you'll be able to see that. So next is from Muzahura Abdul from Central College, Chotera Central. He says there is a way people access the wireless network by scanning. Do we have any way of retarding that? I don't know if this is clear, but if I get you right, I think there is a way someone can scan your network and possibly get access to the network or authenticate. If that is the case, then
it's not quite clear. If it is okay, we could give him the mic so he can ask. And
okay, I think we can open up the. We shall allow Abdul to say something. I'm going to open up the mic as we go through this. This is Wency says, so far the presentation is fine and understandable. This is Covey, I think from MCRI, she says more light on managed and unmanaged networks. Then what happens if I put a 5 gigahertz indoor, something like that? I think her question is around how do you choose which equipment or which whether to have 5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz. But the question is, first of all, can you throw some light on managed and unmanaged or equipment or networks or anything like that?
okay, so what's that? Okay, so managed, unmanaged, and then to the frequency bands. So if starting with unmanaged and then the managed, if you're using the managed devices, or if we should just say if you're in a managed wireless network, there are things you're not going to worry about because they're done automatically. You do not want to worry about which frequency band should my AP transmit in, broadcasting, which channel, all that can be done automatically. And I think that's a plus for the managed networks, managed APs, if I should say. So let me try to expound more on the managed access point. So, and I'll use an example of Ubiquiti. It's the one I've worked with a lot. So Ubiquiti, if say you're in a campus and you have even up, I don't know up to how many, a campus and usually will have maybe a big one, maybe more than 50 APs, if we should just use that example. So all those APs, you realize if you have such many APs, or even if they're just 10, you really need a central place where you can sort of manage them or even monitor them, like be able to know this is up, this is down. Maybe this AP usually connects, so this many users, this one connects few. Maybe we need to create another, to put up another AP nearby this one to relieve this of this load. Like you kind of need some extra information that for you to manage your network so well and make sure that your end users are actually happy. So what stands out, like I said, is that with managed, you're able to do that effortlessly, and it's what you would have to do manually with the unmanaged APs is all done automatically with the managed ones. So that's the difference. Yeah, but maybe to talk more a little about the frequency bands is that, so the 5 gigahertz band is 5 gigahertz is more than 2.4. Yeah? So for frequency, so the higher the frequency, then the lower the range, yeah, the range it can cover. So that's why I said that the 5 gigahertz band would be suitable for smaller cells. Okay, in communication, they tend to just say cells, but just look at this as the area that it should cover, yeah? So if you have a small place that's maybe an office, that you want, and it's where you want to put an AP, I mean, it wouldn't be bad to have it in 5 gigahertz because you don't want it to cover a long range. But if you're putting an AP in a place and you want it to maybe cover a radius of maybe up to what, like 100 meters or like a longer range, yeah, if that's your target, then you will have you'll need to have it in the 2.4 gigahertz band. Also importantly is that the 5 gigahertz band, because it is very susceptible to interference, so that's why it doesn't go the longer ranges. Yeah, I hope that helps, or if anyone wants to add, please feel free, put up your hand or send something in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you for patience for that. Abdul from Chotera Central, you are allowed to speak and ask your question. It wasn't very clear. But in the meantime, I would like to say, I think someone said in the question part, Patience, I want to know the definition of BYOD. What does that mean?
Okay, this is bring your own device, and the example I gave here, I think many of you have had our new product, the Eduroam on the go, small MiFi. So people, even what is maybe currently there, you have some people have, you know, these MiFis that they, you know, move around with. So you may be trying, you know, all this channel planning and stuff, but people are coming around your campus or near your APs and they have their own devices. They don't care what channel you're broadcasting in, they're broadcasting their own thing. So this also makes your channel planning quite difficult. So BYOD is just bring your own device. Yeah.
Thank you. Abdul, I think you can say what you wanted to say. Abdul from Chotera Central.
Yes, please. So thank you very much for this lecture. And my question is, you know, on these APs, when we are accessing, let's say, the wireless network, we are provided the passwords, but there is how people scan and tap into the network, and then they start accessing the network as if they are legitimate users. Do we have any way of how we can curb it down or revert those people from accessing the network in such a way? That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. I think we shall discuss that later, the next part of the discussion.
Yeah, sure, Abdul. So just hang on a little bit. In the next part of my presentation, I think I've covered something on authentication. Yeah, so I hope your question will be answered when we get there.
Okay.
Then Ben from IUCA says he was responding to, I think, Ismail's question about the generic or generic controllers. He says there is an open source customizable, there is one open source customizable to serve as a controller. I think it's called Chili Spot. So it is one open source captive port or wireless. I think you can go through the discussion there. Captive port or wireless LAN access point controller. It is used for authenticating users of a wireless LAN. It supports web-based login which is today's standard for public hotspots. Authentication, authorization, and accounting is handled by your favorite radio server. So I think we can explore Chili Spot as a controller. Since it is open source, I believe it can be used by several other, and it is, I think, platform independent in what I'm trying to picture here. Then, so as we proceed to the next part of the discussion, I think we have handled the questions here. What are the signs that there is an interference on the LAN, wireless LAN? I think Agre asks, what are the signs that there is interference on the wireless LAN? I think the very first thing is the first indicator is performance. So you see packet losses, then you begin digging through. Then if you have a Wi-Fi analyzer, like Daniel clearly says, Daniel from Mira University, he says Mubarak can use a Wi-Fi analyzer, like what patients showed you. You can actually see that maybe I have several, for the institutions that with several buildings, some buildings have their own access points, some of them with different Wi-Fi from different networks. So if it is crowded in one place and it causes a lot of interference. So the signs are, of course, the performance won't be good, but you can actually see clearly if you used an analyzer. So Agre from UCU, I think that's clear. Mubarak says, I think he was adding to that, for example, ubiquity devices handle both 2.4 gigahertz and 5 at the same time. So yes, remember that 5 is a newer standard or something like that. That means there are some devices, especially old computers. I don't know if there are phones that don't support 5 gigahertz, but I believe all phones now have both capability for both 2.4 and 5. So usually, if your device supports both 2.1 gigahertz, it would prefer to go for the 5 gigahertz. So that means, I think when if you use the analyzer, you can see clearly that the two SSIDs, the SSID is in both 5 and 2.4 gigahertz. So Daniel said, you talked about buildings and trees blocking the network. What of the weather? Which access point can withstand bad or poor weather? I don't know.
Okay, so now when you talk about weather and the access points, because now these are, radio waves that we are talking about, so I don't think it can still be about the access point, because the weather will affect the signal anyway. So I personally wouldn't say that this particular access point is going to be better for bad weather, but rather it is just the strength of your signal that is going to withstand bad weather. That is what I would think.
Okay, we have someone, I'm Fred from Kuruva. How often should I change the password of my Wi-Fi? I think we can also discuss that in the next presentation. Probably, do you want to say something, Pesh, now?
I think that could also wait for the next part of the presentation.
All right, then we have, how can I connect the building to my same network, which is a plot away from our location? Joseph, I think Joseph is from Team University. So the question is, how can I connect maybe to far places. There is a hostel to the main campus or to a particular block in the university. Do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go back to here. So for connecting buildings, you can use, well, you can use wireless, yeah. You can use fiber. Copper, I wouldn't recommend because, you know, the distance is limited, 100 meters. Beyond that, you may have a bad experience. So the catch on wireless is just one. You need line of sight, yeah? You need line of sight between the two endpoints. So if you have that, your wireless might actually work, you know, very well. Will actually be very, very okay. But to avoid all that, and maybe if your budget allows, I would recommend fiber. Fiber between your building. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Patience. So I think that is very clear. We can proceed to the next part of the discussion. This part as well shall be taken on by Patience to discuss what is left in on our outline for as we discuss wireless networks. So welcome to those that have just joined us. We have, as we told you earlier, we have series of webinars. We had one some months back, and this is the next, the second webinar, the NOC webinar. And in this discussion, we are discussing today campus wireless networks because they are an important and integral part of our network. Then we'll proceed on to having tomorrow, we'll discuss something around bandwidth management and optimization, and a few questions on a few questions are sorry, the other part, the topic will be around troubleshooting, especially, and basic troubleshooting as we troubleshoot RENU services. So institutions consume several RENU services, including cloud, web hosting, and other added services. So we'll have a discussion around that tomorrow. So the chat is open. You can, and please feel free to raise your hand in case you want to say something, and be free to text and share your insights. Ben has already shared with us the link to Chili Spot, and I believe we can all see that. Thank you all, and let us continue with the discussion. So, Patience, over to you.
Right, thank you, Ronald. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to the discussion, the interaction that we just had. Thank you for the questions, and those of you that responded to some questions, thank you very much. Okay, so let's get moving into the next part. So the next part is yeah, I called it wireless integration into in campus networks. Yeah. So we shall look at, you know, physical installations. We shall look at layer 2 SSIDs, layer 3, basically IP planning, and authentication and security, which I think many people are usually very interested in. Okay, so SSID, I needn't say what it is in full, but yeah, service set identifier, which is basically a network name, yeah? And often it is something that you can read, something that kind of makes sense. People tend to use maybe like if you came to RENU, maybe you see there's boardroom, maybe there's office, something like that, something that actually makes sense. So we know that, and I think when you people usually are setting up SSIDs in your wireless networks, you know that this is not just an SSID, but it's something that gives the user some information. For example, if it's the Wi-Fi in the library, you want to include library there, or your campus or university's name, something like that. So there's user information always in the SSIDs, and I think that's very important. We discourage against, tempting SSIDs, because imagine what happens when you start broadcasting an SSID like finance department. Everyone is interested in finance, so everyone will try to hook on to and actually explore more, to try and see what about finance, campus security. There are some sensitive areas that people always want to get to, finance related things, HR related things. People will always be interested in that. So your choice of SSIDs will have an impact on your roaming, and this is on-campus roaming and even beyond, and also your network design. So we call them layer 2 because here we are basically looking at an AP doing only the layer 2 stuff. I mean, you're not doing nothing, you're not doing, there's no any routing or DHCP or anything. So this is what you're looking at, just an SSID is what is happening at layer 2. Okay. So we think that it is important for you in your universities or campuses or organizations to think about roaming, because what happens when someone is moving from one building to another, and some buildings are actually far apart, or what happens if some universities have different campuses, for example, UCU. What happens when someone moves from UCU Mukono and is visiting UCU Mbale? Should they actually be looking for the IT personnel there to share a password for them to hook onto the Wi-Fi there? That's the roaming I'm talking about. So I think for many of us, we'd all agree that you don't want that break in your network connection. You want to move all around campus and everything is seamless. You've not dropped a connection and you're able to go on with whatever you're doing. Maybe you're on a call moving from this building to another and you do not want to drop that call. Let me go on. So still on the roaming and the layer 2 SSIDs. So here I say that many clients will not need a new IPVs as they switch, as long as they stay on the same SSID, meaning that if in this building, maybe, let me say, which university? For example, if the Wi-Fi at IUIU is IUIU Wi-Fi or my IUIU. So, and it's the same broadcast on all APs, meaning if I come from this building to the next building, it's the same SSID. What it's saying here is that you will not need a new, like you don't need to get another IP address. You will stay with the same IP address. But this is not possible for every kind of device. I think some older ones will actually not respect that. Some older phones versions. So, but then now, when I speak about the One SSID, it kind of means that you have to be in the same, your entire wireless network has to be in the same IP subnet, because you're talking about the DHCP anyway. Or you should be able to kind of have the management in the controller. So maybe now you might be asking yourself, so now a very big institution, can I have the entire wireless network in just one subnet? It's a question. And so because we feel this is really happening on your campuses, with the Wi-Fi networks, here we are going to share recommendations we think that are very useful or might be very useful for you if you do not yet have them. Yeah. So the first recommendation is that you should run one SSID across your campus or organization, or should I say community? It's not, okay, maybe I can't say community because in this case it would mean like the RENU community, which is big. We can't all have the same SSID. But in your university, in your organization or school, you should have one SSID so that if it is Bugema University, maybe it is Bugema Wi-Fi throughout campus, not going here, you see Bugema library, said Bugema students, said, you know, this and that. If the other recommendation is that if you have hardware that can that supports a single managed IP, then it's a good thing that you can also get to use. So there's a bit, it's kind of raining here. I don't know if my voice is still okay. Like if my audio is still fine, they can confirm. Or if I need to.
I hope you can hear us. They say it's okay.
Okay, fine. So I think on the last slide, I left a question that was saying, so do we use the same subnets? But then we know that some networks are really big. So that question is answered here. That it should also be okay if you can, you know, put your networks in different small subnets. So maybe you have a slash, depending on your users anyway. Maybe you have a /23 here, you have /24 there. But then importantly, you're broadcasting like the same SSID. Okay. I wanted this. So, but we know that, yeah, in your implementations and stuff, the big discussion is always about price and then the value. I mean, even when you go to your finance people and you're saying you want to put this AP, you want to do this, the question is, what's the price? Yeah. So maybe that striking the balance there is also important. It's a question for us to ponder on, and maybe for people here that are in networks that have deployed certain things to get to share with the rest of us. And RENU has really come out strongly on this. And since I've been talking about roaming, I talked about roaming in your university, across university campuses, but also roaming, you know, globally. Yeah. There's eduroam. Eduroam is a recommendation that we shall give to any university at any time, and you know, and I mean, we are confident about this because it will fit in what we've already said. Run only one SSID on your campus, so you can decide and run only eduroam on your campus. I think actually there are now some institutions on the RENU network whose Wi-Fi at their campus is only eduroam. I think that's a very good thing to do. But also importantly is the roaming that I have been talking about, that you're not just limited to your university, but should you go to any other place that has eduroam, then you're able to just get connected. Should you travel out of this country and you happen to be in a place where there's eduroam, you're not going to have to ask for credentials and stuff like that. Eduroam will be there for you. So when you start thinking of which one SSID can I actually broadcast on campus for everyone, we shall just point you to what? To eduroam. And this has worked and we're sure about this. Okay. So now all we've been talking about, because it's been mainly just about the SSID, that was like layer 2. So at layer 3 is layer 3 is where you have now some Wi-Fi routers doing things like routing, NATing, firewall, DHCP, and all that. So you realize that all these are actually layer 3, network layer functions. And for us, the recommendation is that such functions of routing, NATing, DHCP, and firewall should be kept in your core network, and not in the access, like, you know, having these functions running on your access point. Wouldn't recommend that. And we get to see this in many of your campus networks, but it is not recommended because actually, if I should say, many times this should I say messes up most of the networks, if I should say, yeah, if I should call it that. So you should scale networks just using access points and not routers, not Wi-Fi routers, because you don't want to NAT in your wireless networks. Yeah, sorry, let's skip something. Yeah, and then here comes the big I think discussion. Most times people will say, but wireless is less secure. Yeah. And so it should be a completely different network, and you know, the many things that we say about wireless. And actually sometime I was having a discussion with someone and said, but if you think wireless is secure, how about the wired connection? What authentication do you have for the wired connection? Because if I walk to your office and I have a cable and connect to your wired network, I would just, you know, connect. I don't even need a password like for Wi-Fi. Yeah. So it is a myth that wireless is less secure. That is a myth. And because of what we are going to see, it can be less secure because of your authentication and other things, but it can also be very secure because of the same. So implementation of that is very key. Yeah, and this is what I've just been saying, that your wireless clients are probably more secure than your wired ones. Yeah. And it's there that, do I need to sign into anything, or I just need to plug into an Ethernet drop and I am on your network? Think about that. Okay. Okay, so wireless network authentication. So ideally, authentication can really happen in different ways. And if we gave everyone a chance to share about how they do authentication for their wireless, maybe some people can share in the chat as we go on, you realize that people actually use different, authenticate their users in different ways. I have been to institutions or campuses where people use the MAC address restrictions, yeah, that someone keeps the MAC list. So we know how taxing that is, but yeah, it works for some people. It has its issues. Sorry. In other places, people use the pre-shared key-based authentication. This is just the, the Wi-Fi password. Like, I think this is what I find very common, that there's an SSID there, but to get onto it, you ask, there's one common password, yeah? So everyone has to get that password. And that's actually uses this kind of authentication, WPA-PSK, which is insecure and can actually not scale. There's also the captive portal authentication, which is, yes, better than the pre-shared key, but maybe not the ideal. Then there's the 802.1 best authentication, and this is the ideal, and this is what is recommended. It is recommended for your wireless network authentication because it is performed on centralized servers like the Red Hat, and hence the better deal for, which makes it ideal compared to all these other ways. Okay, so going on. So if you're to look at MAC address restriction as a way of authenticating your users, you find that this particular method is actually limited, yeah? Because MAC addresses can be spoofed. Maybe most of you have seen this or have actually done this. And then this really increases the workload for help desk, yeah? That adding, changing, if someone has been your user and they lose their machine and they get a new machine, so they have to come back to you, tell you, remove this MAC address, now I have this one, add it. That is too much work that I think none of you would want to do on a daily, yeah? So they say that the MAC restriction, this kind of method would be perfect for, maybe infrastructure links and things like Internet of Things, but not really suitable for user access control. So, and then the other method, which is the pre-shared keys, one password for all, that you come here, maybe there's a password, there's a network called Makere, and the password is this, one password for everyone. It is useful. For example, if you have a workshop, you have many people in one room, I think that's the easier thing to do. You just set up a wireless network and give them the key. At the end of the week, you bring that down. And it's a temporary network anyway. But it's not what we'd recommend, like, for the general use, maybe at your institution, maybe your school, your campus, yeah? Unless it's really, on top of it, you're doing some kind of authentication, like the portal-based authentication. Like you do that, then, like some kind of two-factor authentication, which increases the security. Because this, I think every time for these pre-shared keys, they're like the most shared keys. This one shares with this, with another person, and the other person is with this other person. And before you know, the entire community in which your institution is located has your password, and they can access your network. That is not okay. As this WPA2 enterprise authentication, which we said is ideal, and it is the only, it's written here, it's the only recommended scalable authentication approach, but it requires a complete, reliable, and updated user database. So often you maybe need Active Directory, LDAP and stuff like that. And I think for those that have attempted to maybe get EDROM on campus, get EDROM as a service on their campus, this has been like one of the first requirement. You have an Active Directory of your users, because if you don't have that, then you can't really do much in terms of implementing this kind of authentication. Then Radius, which takes on the role of talking to the wireless system. So authentication is by the Radius server, which meaning you must also have now a special server that you're going to configure to be your Radius server to help with authentication. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so all in all, for authentication, bits for, I said earlier when I was talking about the layer 2 SSIDs about EDROM. So EDROM uses this kind of authentication that people or your users can, and you have a database where their email addresses are. So you only those that you want connected on the network are the only ones who connect. And because it uses, maybe usually people's email account and the password for the same email account. So it's not something that someone will freely share. That's a catch on the side of the users that who would, by the way, freely want to share the pre-shared key, yeah? The pre-shared key sounds like, oh, it's a 888, this is 8-10 times to get onto this one. But because this involves someone's email address, their password, no one wants to share that. Because if I give you that, it means you can actually get into my, read my emails. So it's helpful in that way, and it is proven. We've used it. I think many institutions are using it. All those that have the EDROM service are using it. And I am sure we can get some testimonies here. I think this is it from me. Thank you for listening to me. And I think now the floor will be open for discussion. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Patience. And thank you all for listening in and keeping the ear. So we have, I think we can now open up the discussion, especially on which, say, good practices we should be employing as institutions to protect our network infrastructure, our wireless infrastructure. One thing to mention, Patience has been talking about, I think on a particular slide where she talks about the load that we give access points. So we see that some of us have access points in our network that have all the functions that are possible. Possibly they are configured by default. So they have defaults. They do DHCP, they do NAT, So some of them are congested. I saw in one of the slides on how many users should really connect on an access point. And because of the limitations we have, especially budgetary limitations, as a network administrator, do we really know how many users we get? Do we check our controllers to see how many users, how many simultaneous users we get at a particular point on the network, on a particular access point? And can the access point handle that much traffic? especially how many users or clients are in, and something like that. If you're dishing out IP addresses, your access point is doing DHCP, and possibly you have one access point in school, and you encouraged your students to bring in their devices, for example. How many can they handle that much traffic? Can the access point you have, say, in the library handle your students? So all that in this discussion, possibly we can address. Then the other, I think, following Abdul's question about the authentication methods. So we have looked at several methods, pre-shared key. We have looked at the MAC address limitations. I have seen an institution that does that seriously. A student comes into the university and they record their MAC address of their laptop, their phone, and they do all matter of restrictions on that MAC address. But which kind of staff will you have? How many people will you need to run that network, especially when people have changing their devices and all that stuff? So it's a trade-off really on particular access control or a particular authentication method versus how we can handle, and either we have the particular staff to handle these requests and all that. Then about the authentication method 802.1x, I think that should be stressed enough, and it is important that we have, because all of us, especially universities and research institutions, we have students, or we have staff, or our users actually sign into our services, mail, and all those things. So why do you still have, if you have a user database and all that, why do you now leave your wireless infrastructure to be authenticated with a pre-shared key? So if we have these authentication methods, and possibly we have eduroam enrolled on campus, we have an accounting and authentication methodology that we are sure that our services will be consumed, especially by the people we have allowed to consume these services. Joel, in your question, I think you said when you have visitors versus regular users, I think I just need to check that here now. Where you have visitors, I think.
I think you're saying, but how wouldn't it be, isn't it a better thing to have a separate SSID for your visitors and then another for maybe with restrictions, because you may want to, like, your visitors not to be able to access certain things and stuff like that. I think that's a good thing. So in such a case, you would maybe, because what are visitors doing, maybe it's not, well, it's restricted as you want. So you can actually have maybe broadcast an SSID that even just uses a pre-shared key, because they're not in your, for example, in your AD, your Active Directory. So there's no way you would give them access to your network anyway, unless you're running like eduroam, which they also have, so that way they will be able to get connected to your network. But if it is another SSID and you're authenticating by radius for them to access it, you would have to have them in your database. So the thing to do is maybe have a separate one just for them, with just, the basic, maybe just not restrictions on maybe they can't reach your server network, they can't, something like that. But I think I saw an interesting one. Daniel from Lira said he's only running Eduroam on campus. I think that's very impressive, Daniel. And yeah, maybe some other people can pick a leaf. So I don't think, because Daniel being Lira University is like the biggest maybe institution in Lira. If it was a pre-shared, trust me, maybe more than half of the people in Lira town could be having it by now. But because of the kind of authentication you have on Eduroam, you don't have to worry so much. You're actually sure that the people accessing your Wi-Fi are the intended people. And that is a plus for you, reduces your work.
Thank you very much, Patience. And yes, someone here is asking, she's called Lydia. Lydia is asking, I have seen Eduroam on our campus. What is the password? So Lydia, I think you won't really get the password for Eduroam from anyone. So what you need to do is you need to have Eduroam on your own, at your own institution. So as we already said, Eduroam is a service that that helps, that rides on authentication, as we said, 801.1x. So you need your own credentials to log into and authenticate with your own credentials to access. Yes, it is 802.1x. Thank you. So you need your own credentials to access your own resources. So I think, Lydia, you can send an email in case you don't have Eduroam running on your campus. And similarly, Mr. Fred from Kuruva, he says, thanks for presentation. Is there a way you can help me set up a user database for authentication? So I think we can have, I'm going to text and share an email where you can share your request and the team will get back to you. So you'll need to write to systems@renu.sc.ug, and then the team will get back to you and help you through getting your user database set up and possibly a Redias server that will help you work and be able to benefit. So like we said earlier, RENU has gone big on Eduroam as a service, and we have different flavors right now. Metro Eduroam, we have Eduroam on the go, we have several other services. So as you have Eduroam on campus and other places that your users or your students and researchers and staff can really make use of this service. So I think we can have interactions right now. Especially would like to hear from you on how you manage wireless infrastructure. Any good practices that you want to share with everyone and anything that you want to share with us. Scovia from MCRI, I believe, in case you want to say something, you are allowed to speak. Otherwise, the rest of us, in case you want to say something, raise up your hand or keep the messages flowing in the chat. So Scovia, in case you want to say something, you're allowed to speak, so you can unmute and share or ask.
So maybe as we wait for Scovia to speak, there's a question from Agri. It says we are using unified devices and the controller, open LDAP data source, and I want set a maximum of 2 devices per user. Is it possible? I think personally, I haven't, implemented this or even looked for it. Well, I don't think I've had a use case for it. But we have people here. I think Daniel Dera could be running some unifies. I don't know if he has explored that, limiting how many devices, but that would be by what? By the user, since he's using LDAP. So like maybe this person can only have 2 active sessions. So anyone that has something to share on that, they are welcome to say something. Kajumba also mentioned the system is running Unify, I mean Eduroam on campus as the only Wi-Fi. I think that's great. Thank you guys for doing that. And I wish you guys that are running, Daniel or Kajumba, I don't know if any of you would be open to actually get the mic and share your experience before and after, just rolling out just one SSID. What is your experience? Would you be happy to share that with the rest of us?
So thank you, Patience. I think Scovia can speak, then we shall hear from Daniel Okalo from Lira University. Scovia. Scovia, please say what you want to say.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Scovia.
Okay, thank you. One, we are using Eduroam, but we are wondering why some people are unable to log on using their devices. And this is because I think we use our domain credentials to access it. So we don't know why some people will try connecting. Personally, I'm not connected to it, but just a few people that we have who are connected. 2, would there be an interference if I use a long range AP in different rooms which are adjacent to each other? Thank you for now.
Thank you, Scovia. I think for the first question, Eduroam not working. I believe you are from MCRI, Mbale. I think you can, I have shared this with the systems team. They will get back to you and work with you around that. We may not really troubleshoot that right now, but they'll get back to you on that. I have noted that down. And then the other part where you said, where you're deploying long-range access points in adjacent rooms. So really, your deployment depends on how you cover your campus, I think. So if the rooms are adjacent and surely, if you are in one room, you said you're using long range. So if you are in one room and the coverage is not going to the other room, an adjacent room, that is when you would need. Otherwise, in case it's possible that you actually place your access point outside, if it's a long range and it is outside both rooms, and it is positioned, say maybe in the middle of the 2 rooms or something like that, at a distance away, and it adequately covers, then it would be able to serve. One access point could be able to serve. But really, depending on how thick your walls are and how the rooms are positioned. I believe one, in case they're not so big and not so many users, one long range access point can serve both rooms, in case it is positioned in a way that can work well.
Okay, Ronald. Okay, sorry,
Yes.
sorry to this on this. We've done that, but when a room is closed, then you're unable to access internet. That's why I'm trying to bring it out. So if I put it in the middle and both rooms are closed, it means it might be hard for someone to tap the CD. I don't know.
Thank you. I understand that. I think really that's, you have tried the one access point outside and didn't work, then maybe you may not need long range access points for both rooms. The power may be too much. Maybe you can allocate the long range access point to a different place and use the normal access points, maybe. So possibly we can have an added discussion with you. Good thing we can easily chat outside this webinar. So Daniel, the mic is open and you can unmute and talk to us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Ronald and Pesh, for this webinar. Yep, I had quite an experience here at Lira. Before EduRoam, we used to have many people around campus, and I always check the network and I'd be like, where are all these human beings from? But they've disappeared. But now I think what I am looking at the moment, which I am yet to figure it out, I've not given it time. I think Agri's question, was it Agri that says he wants to limit users? Because I think some users are misuse the opportunity that they have, and they are very generous in sharing their credentials with other people, because I have noticed some notorious users being available in like 2 or 3 blocks at the same time with different devices, because I can check my controller and see that such and such a user is logged on this device at this location. So I don't think the Unify controller is able to do that, but I want to believe it is possible in the Radius server. I want to explore the Radius and see if there is that possibility of limiting the user accounts to like 2 or 3 devices, but not allowing people to have 10 devices in different locations. It's weird, because if I see you in the library, I don't expect to see you in your faculty, and the same you is maybe at the university hospital. What are you doing in 3 places at the same time? You are not God. So I think the Radius has that capacity. I've just not explored it, but yeah, that's something we should explore. So Agri, I think I don't know if you're using Radius, but if you're using if you're using the enterprise connection, yeah, you must be having a Radius server. So you explore it on Radius, but yeah, that's also what I'm looking at the moment. And I think to Scovia's first question was, Ronald, can you just remind me what I had something to say to Scovia for our first question?
I think our first question was about EduRoam. Some users don't authenticate.
Yeah, I think I first that at the beginning of our deployment, but I think if you employ the use of eduroam CAT, you will solve that problem by at least 90 or 95%, because most times when a user fails to authenticate and you get the CAT and you install the certificate, the user should be able to authenticate without any problem. I'm sure Helen and her team can help on setting your institution on CAT if you are not yet there. But if you're already there, see how you can use CAT, but the RENU systems and the networks team can really help you on that easily. So CAT always solves a lot of problems, because, for example, here I have noticed that our usual connection does not work for Android 11 and 12. So for that, if I see a device with Android 11 or 12, I just tell them, make sure you install eduroam CAT, and they'll be good to go. But if you try the traditional way, it won't work. Yeah. But
Thank you very much.
That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And thank you for the insight, especially on what you have done and your success story with eduroam. Then I think for Agre, like Daniel said, on the controller, you may not really do anything about the multiple users from the same using the same credentials, but yes, it is possible with the Radius server. So surely, I think it's just something that needs to be explored, but it is possible on the Radius server. Then someone from, yes, this is Abdul again from Chotera Central. He says, I wasn't given rights to control who should access or not access the Wi-Fi, or not supposed to. I think, Abdul, we're going to have a discussion with you around this. I want to believe that every school that was that uses eduroam and was given access points have the schools have, yes, a managed ITP, and there's an account where you can especially include or add users. So in case something that it's not the case, then we shall get back to you. I think the team is going to reach out to you and we discuss. Thank you very much for that. And I don't know if we have any other hands up or questions on the chat. Yes. Like we said, Fred from Kuruva, please send out the email to systems@RENU. Scovia as well, please send out an email to systems@RENU and we'll get back to you and also discuss with you on how to deal with eduroam CAT and any other deployments. Then Abdul, in case we don't get back to you now, please also send an email to systems@RENU and we'll see how this is shared with you. So I've seen concerns on the presentations and the recording. These will be shared with you at the end of the 2 days. So tomorrow, as we said, we have another session where we'll still discuss bandwidth utilization and performance and optimization, and then troubleshooting RENU services. So we'll have, after the 2 sessions are concluded, then we shall follow an email that will have the presentations and the recording. Would like to thank you very much. It is coming to 5 p.m., which is our end of the webinar. Thank you very much. I believe we have captured all the questions. Yes, Henry Ndaula, Unique has got EduRoam all over campus. However, some of the devices like iOS, macOS cannot connect to it. What could be done to solve this problem? Henry Ndaula from Unique, just please send an email. I have noted these issues, but as well send an email to systems@RENU and we'll get back to you on that. I thank you all and would like to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. It's not easy. Yes. Ramadan, welcome. Ramadan from IU. You're welcome. Patience, any last words before we close?
Okay, it's just to say thank you to everyone that made time to be present for our first session today. Thank you for the contributions. Daniel, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It helps a lot. So I'd like to encourage everyone else that please feel free to, as we discuss something, to share with the rest of the team what you guys are doing at your campus. It could be useful for someone else. And anyway, this is what the community is here for. So if it is working for you and it's a good thing and you think it can help someone else, please always feel free to share what you're doing. So see you again tomorrow. And yes, have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Patience. Agri has a hand. I don't know if you can take it. Agri, please say what you have to say. We are just 1 minute past, but I think you can raise sorry, unmute and say what you wanted to say.
I just talk about the problem of reducing, limiting authentication. Of late, we have been having issues with the students, we've been using EduRoam for over 10 years, I think. We were the first people that joined EduRoam. But the challenge that is very big with the free radius, we were trying to minimize, to limit who authenticates, but that one deters even people that are roaming, maybe that are outside the campus, like the people that are maybe abroad, the people that are somewhere else, which becomes a very big hindrance. So if we could come up with a solution to this thing of limiting maybe 2 sessions, it would really be important to have it addressed. Otherwise, it is continuing to become a problem. And with EduRoam is very, very nice. Only that this is the only challenge that I've met with the limiting of how many users can do access, because users can share. You can find 50 people, or the same person connected to 50 devices, which becomes a very big problem. Please help out.
Thank you very much, Agri, and yes, we appreciate that feedback. So as you said, in my understanding, it's possible to limit the users, but yes, I think we can have an added discussion to it, and the team will surely get back to you on a possible solution to that. Thank you all, and let us meet tomorrow. I think maybe we shall also add to the discussion about troubleshooting services tomorrow, and maybe also talk about EduRoam as it is one of the services. So surely let us all meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. to talk about the other 2 topics, that is bandwidth management and optimization, and troubleshooting RENU services. Thank you and have a good evening.